Adriana is muted.
Okay, I'm sorry. We had a little difficulty. So, hi, I would like to present our second speaker for today from the MVPs. Her name is Georgia Kaliva. Georgia has graduated from the University of Piraeus, is a Microsoft AI MVP with years of experience in software engineering, and is currently working for ITT as web applications developer. She is passionate about AI and Azure and has represented Greece in global competitions in technology and entrepreneurship. She's a member of the Microsoft Student Partners team and has taken over the role of mentor in several Microsoft competitions and training. So, Georgia, we're excited to hear about your presentation.
Hello, everyone. I am Georgia, and welcome to Summer in Greece Festival, day 1. I hope you had fun today, this morning, with a lot of awesome speakers that started this event, and I hope you'll enjoy the following days as well. Give me a minute. Okay, so in this session, we're going to see how to create personalized experiences using the Azure Personalizer service. I am Georgia, as Adriana said. A few things about me. I'm a Microsoft MVP in AI and a Microsoft Student Partner or Learn Ambassador, as we're turning this year, you'll see. And I work as a web application developer. I love blogging, so if you liked my to check out Azure or AI or any other similar topic, you can visit my blog, goatstories.gr. Find the blog on Facebook or find me on LinkedIn, GitHub, and Twitter. So today's agenda, we're going to cover everything from scratch, so you don't have to have any previous knowledge of AI, machine learning, or Azure. We're going to see what are cognitive services, what is the personalizer service, and why is it so important to know, to learn, the features of the service, a small live demo, and we're going to have some time for Q&A. So if you have any questions, you can type them in during the presentation, and I'll try to answer as many as possible at the end. So what is AI? AI is any technology that appears to emulate human behavior performance. This happens typically by learning, making decisions, understanding natural language, and the goal is to enhance human cognitive performance and support people in executing tasks. Artificial intelligence is actually any technique which enables computers to mimic humans. Artificial intelligence contains machine learning, that's actually statistical AI techniques to enable machines to improve and learn. And then we have deep learning, which is machine learning, which learns and uses neural networks. So what is machine learning? Machine learning is the process of programming the unprogrammable. If you look at this picture, what you can see is two faces and something that's not a face, and you can recognize that we can see some fishes, maybe the sea or an aquarium, and the monument. What machine learning does is trying to create a model that interprets the data that we see as we interpret them, as humans interpret them. There are several machine learning types. The first is supervised learning. In supervised learning, I usually have a large data set. I split it into two groups. One is the learning data set, and the other one is the test data set. And what I do is I use the learning data set to train a model that I later use the test data set to test the outcome. For example, if I have an application that can recognize faces, I input a lot of pictures of people's faces, and then I test it with new pictures to see if it can recognize faces or not. This is supervised learning. The second type is unsupervised learning. Unsupervised learning are algorithms that try to find patterns inside our data. So when we have like large data set, the algorithm tries, for example, to group those data into categories and give us those results. So we don't have to train it to train this algorithm. It can try and learn on its own. And the third type, and it is actually what we're going to see today, is reinforcement learning. Reinforcement learning is a kind of machine learning type that not only tries to learn, but it also tries to propose the best possible solution. Reinforcement learning is mostly used in game theory and similar areas. So, for example, if I have a Google Maps, let's say, or any kind of map or something like that, and I want to go from point A to point B, a reinforcement learning algorithm will not only just give me a route, it will try to give me the best route depending on the parameters I give this algorithm. Okay, this is how machine learning works. To train and build a machine learning model it can take a lot of people. You would need you would need a lot of data. Then you would need someone to mine this data to find the ones that are most useful to train this algorithm. And then you'll have to do a cycle of training, building results, and from the beginning until the machine learning model starts to perform best. And you know, there are several machine learning models that can never stop training. For example, if I'm building an application to predict the weather, I would have to have the weather data from previous years, so I could predict next year's data. But if I want to predict data after next year, I will have to retrain my model with data from last year. I cannot use weather data from 1995 to predict data in 2020. Okay? Here come Azure Cognitive Services. Azure Cognitive Services are actually pre-built machine learning models, so I can use them as APIs. There are several categories and several APIs. Here is an example of the Text Analytics API client. So this API has sentiment analysis. It can detect whether a phrase is it has positive or negative context. So when I fitted the phrase, "This is a great vacuum cleaner," it will return that it's probably a positive sentence or enthusiastic sentence. If I'm cursing or have a depressive meaning, let's say, it will give me the opposite result. So actually, Cognitive Services is a set of ready-to-use APIs for developers to use without requiring machine learning expertise. So you don't have to know which machine learning type you're using, which algorithms runs on the background. You just take this API and use it. Some of those APIs still require some training, but not to the extent of building something from scratch. So when you're a developer just starting out to experiment, or you're not interested on working with artificial intelligence, this is a great way to jumpstart your application. Of course, Microsoft Cognitive Services These are the Microsoft Cognitive Services available today, and this list keeps growing or changing, and new categories coming forth. Last year it was a completely different image, but they're not for everyone. If you have a very specific application that needs specific, that has very specific needs, for example, you're building something for a financial company, or you're building something for a factory, and you needed to do it for that specific industry, Microsoft Cognitive Services might not be what you're looking for. You would have to use other kind of AI techniques, machine learning available in Azure. But as I said, Microsoft Cognitive Services do not require any machine learning expertise and are ready to use. So one of the services is the Azure Personalizer service. Azure Personalizer service, as any other Azure service, is actually a cloud-based API that enables your application to choose the best content item to show your user. The Personalizer right now is everywhere. Every queue we see, our Facebook timeline, our shopping carts, everything we do, our Netflix account, your Spotify account, everything are now personalized to you. So adding that feature to your application can increase your users, and it can give you a lot of traffic that you maybe otherwise wouldn't have. So personalizing is not only for an e-shop or a social media timeline, but can be used in any product. For example, if you have a news application, news site. The Azure Personalized Server so chooses the best content item to show your user based on real-time information you provide about content and context. So how does this work? Personalizer uses reinforcement learning, the third machine learning type, to select the best item based on the collective behavior across all users. The content items are called actions. Actions can be news articles, movies, if you have a movie site, products to choose from, or anything else that you want to suggest to the user. And on top of that, you should have some information about your user. This is the context. So the content is your item, your action, and the context is something familiar to your user. For example, if you have a new site, the context could be a user that usually prefers the athletic column or the gossip column, or someone that's more interested in politics. When we're talking about movies, it could be general genre the user prefers, or maybe the age of the user. That's a characteristic of the user. So maybe some older users prefer certain films or documentaries. Women have different preferences from men. This is a characteristic of the user, and this is the context. So what the personalizer does is it uses the context of the user to suggest the content to the specific user. It uses the context of all users actually. So we actually have a cycle of what we call action and reward. So a user has some action that it does. For example, it reads an article on our site, so I know the user likes it. And the reward is that this article is mostly popular to similar users like him. So by using these two sides, we can personalize the content and provide the best suggestion to our users. There are some requirements or limitations to the service. So you can have up to 50 items at a time. They shouldn't be fixed. You can change what those 50 items are, but you can feed the service up to 50 items. If you, and maybe you do have more than 50 items, there are several ways to rank them in order for the service to use them. You have to have content with action feature and content features. So what I mean by that, so my user has several characteristics. This is the content features. So my user is of some age, gender, has several preferences. These are the content features, and the action features. The action features are, as I said before, the items, articles, movies, products, etc. And the action features are characteristics of this item. For example, an article has category, has length, has reading time, has tags. A movie has a genre. A product, like, I don't know, maybe an athletic shoe, might have size, color. These are action features. And the service works best with 1,000 per day content events. So you would have not 1,000 a day items, but for those 50 items, I would have to have, let's say, I don't know, 25 users that have read, I don't know, like 200 of them, or 1,000 users with one action that have read those 50 articles, let's say. As far as SDK support goes, I think it's one of those services that has a lot of programming languages, .NET and C#, of course, but then again, you can use JavaScript, Python, Ruby, and Java will be coming soon. So, you know, this is true for all cognitive services. Most of the cognitive services, besides Azure, are not limited to a specific technology. So you can use them from any application and any programming languages. Since they're essentially a REST API endpoint, so it's supported almost everywhere. The pricing so far has 2 tiers. It goes by transactions per month. The first 50,000 transactions are free, and then there are different levels of cost per 1,000 transactions. And there's a storage quota of 10 gigabytes. The question I get always is, where do my data go? These data I upload to Azure, who's got them, what are they being used for? Azure has the deepest and most comprehensive compliance coverage in the industry. It means that it won't use your data for any other purpose than they're supposed to. Your data is yours, of course. You can choose to remove them from the service at any time. You can choose how long the service will retain those data. And Azure is compliant with a lot of regulations, for example, GDPR in Europe and other limitations in the US. So don't worry about someone using your data for marketing purposes. They're only used to better the service and not used for any other purposes or in any other way or for longer time that they're needed. This service, although it's young, it came out in 2000 and well, maybe mid-year of 2019. It already has 2 recognitions for the Industry Award for Excellence in Artificial Intelligence and for the most innovative product. So without further ado, let's go ahead and see a live demo. Okay. So in order to use this service, you would have to have an Azure subscription. So this is the Azure portal homepage. If you don't have an Azure subscription, you can always create an Azure Trial. It gives you about $200 for 30 days to use in some services. And if you choose to convert to a paid subscription, you can still use several services for free for up to a year. So if you need to play around, all you have to do is go ahead and open an Azure Trial. The only limitation for an Azure Trial is that you would need to use a credit card. This is, of course, to protect the service from bots and other malicious purposes from users. It won't charge you anything up until the trial ends, or unless you choose to convert it to a pay-as-you-go subscription. So don't worry about it. You can go ahead, open a trial, and no hidden charges, nothing. You can try the service and then delete your account or let the subscription expire. So this is the home page for those of you who have never seen the Azure portal. Here you can see the categories of services available, or the ones you have. From the recent resources, you can see some resources you have. And let's go ahead and create a resource. So what I will do here is find the Personalizer resource. It will give me some information on how to create this resource, what we can do, what are the plans available, if there are any plans. This is a pay-as-you-use service, so there are any plans. In other services, you have plans, for example, for virtual machines or virtual networks, etc. So you go ahead and click Create. You can give your service a name. Let's call it Personalizer. You can choose the subscription if you have more than one. The location, you can use any location that's near to you. Pricing tier, as I said, the free and standard. The resource, and you can choose a resource group to add it to. Let's say called Source Personalizer. For those of you who don't know, a resource group is only a type group to manage your resources. So don't worry about, if you don't know, if you have never used it before, don't worry about it. You just categorize your resources and manage them within Azure. So just go ahead and create a new one. And you would click Create. Right now I'm not going to do it because I already have a resource available. So I'm going to go back to Home and open this resource for you to see how it works. So every Azure resources have quick starts, so you can get an overview, documentation, a lot of code samples, quick start for, as you can see here, I'm hoping you can see in the middle of my screen, SDK for several programming languages, and additional resources if you want to read about it, and go ahead here. This is an overview of the service. Azure resource has a resource group. So this is my resource group, the status, the location, subscription, the details, and other types, so pricing. This is my endpoint. So as I said before, the Personalizer service as a resource is an API. So you have an endpoint, and in order to use it and authenticate with it, you'd get some API keys. Those keys you can manage either by clicking here, or you're going to go on the left on the menu Resource Management and click on Keys and Endpoint. So here you can see a lot of information. You can show your keys, and you can even regenerate your keys in case you lose them or in case you think your key has been compromised. You can change the pricing tier on this menu. You can do code source personalizer configuration settings from here. So this is rewards. We're going to see it in the code as well, but after you, this is the rank and reward cycle I talked about in my presentation. When you declare the items to your service, you are requesting a call for those items. The service does a rank API call, ranking the user's response to your suggestion. No, that's not correct. So the service, let me explain it a little bit better. So what the service does is it suggests, it ranks the items based on all the user preferences and returns the suggested item to the user. If the user likes the item, it rewards the item with whether they liked it or not. I know you're going to say at this point, how would I know that my user liked the item? I can't put, maybe you can't put I like or don't like button in my site or in every one of my products and nobody ever clicks on them. The thing is, there are several ways to see whether the user likes your item. For example, if you suggest an item in an eShop and then the user go ahead and buy it, then the reward is obviously that they liked it. Or if they see an item and disregard it and don't click on it, so the suggestion was not good. If you have a news site and you're suggesting your user articles, and then the user go ahead, clicks on your articles and stayed, if the article has a reading time of, let's say, 2 minutes, and my user stays on the page for like, I don't know, 5 seconds, then they probably never read the article, didn't like them, and they moved on. So there are ways to, within your application, depending on your business needs, to call the API and train it based on the user preferences. So the reward wait time is 10 minutes. I'm gonna put it to 10 seconds because we don't have a lot of time during this presentation to wait between trainings. The reward is from 0 to 1, so 0 didn't like it, 1 liked it. So the default is that I didn't like it. If I don't have a response, or I'm ignored, or for some reason something goes wrong, my default reward, I want it to be 0. There are several other options here, and this is what I told you about the data retention. So log data, you can enter the number of days you want the personalizer to retain log data from usage. The personalizer does not keep your data more than it has to. It just uses it to train your model. Go ahead and save my changes. And it goes ahead, trains model, and discards the data, the raw data. So here I can even export my model, export my settings, or import settings from another personalizer. So even if you change subscription or you want to do a similar thing in different application, you can export the model the service created for you. And you can even do evaluations to evaluate the performance of the model. And as we go down, we can see several other options that most of Azure resources have, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because it is not important right now. So let's go ahead. After I have created my personalizer service, I'm going to go and create an application to train this model and get results from it. So this is actually adapted from a C# sample that you can find on GitHub. What am I using here is I have taken the articles from my blog. These are my actions, my rankable items. I actually put a lot to test the service, but for now I'm gonna just use, I don't know, 8 or 9, how many they are there, to rank. Just for the sake of the demo. So one rankable action has an ID. Of course, if you have a database, you would use a numeric ID. But for the sake of the demo, I just used the link. The ID has to be unique and it has to identify your item. So if you have a database and you have your ID, you would pass on the ID and on the suggestion, you can query the database again and get your item. So, as I said in the presentation, every action or rankable action here should have features, the item features. So a product has color, movie has a genre. I couldn't get a lot of information from my blog because it's a WordPress blog. So I created a quick list of features with the category and the words to see how lengthy it is. This is a list object, which means you can have as many features as you want, and you're not limited by anything. But I would suggest that you have features for every one of your rankable actions in order for the service to perform better. So I declare here my rankable actions. And what am I going to do is create this cycle of rank and reward. So right now I have my rankable actions, but I don't have any information about the user. I want to get some information about the user, what are his preferences. So I'm going to get some context, which is the user profession and user preferences regarding laptop stickers, let's say. And I'm going to declare the current context for this data. I'm going to go a little bit back because I didn't say it before. This is how I would use the service. I have the service endpoint and the API key I extracted from Azure. I would initialize the client and then go ahead and create requests, API requests. Okay, so now I have the rankable actions. I have the user context. All I have to do is train my service. I can even exclude actions if I want to. For this example, I put an action that has like a date. This article didn't have like a link, a proper link, so I don't want to use it. And in any case, if those exclude actions are here, if they're suggested, the reward will always be 0, that the user never liked them. So they would be ranked less than other actions in any case. I have to generate a GUID. Let's not go a lot into this. So what I do is in a console application, I ask my user what's his profession and preference, and then I try to rank, to create a ranking based on his response. This response I return to the service as a reward if they liked it or didn't. So let's run this application. It's a fairly simple application. Okay, I hope you can see it. So this application is made to run in iterations, so you can better train your service. Let's go ahead and say I'm a developer, and laptop stickers are cool or unprofessional. Well, I think they're cool, so I'm going to put 1. And then I'm gonna hit enter, and the personalizer thinks that I should read this. Now I pushed the enter twice, so that's why it says that I didn't like it. But then I am printing out the probabilities. So as you can see, the probabilities are all the same. So when you're starting out with a personalizer service, all the actions are equally rated. But as you continue to use the service, for example, as a personalizer, and you'd push yes, and you would keep doing that action, the service will start to change those rankings to different ones. For example, maybe the first article would have a bigger ranking than the following one, and that's how the service ranks your content items based on the user context and of all users and their preferences. So if I continue to do this, after a while, my model will start returning the highest ranked article. So this is it actually. This is all the personalizer does. It's actually a simple service to use. However, it's very useful because what we do, it creates a model for you. You just give it the data and it will return the rankings. So that's it. That's the Azure Personalizer service. So let's see some resources. You can find a lot of samples on how this service works on GitHub. There are several docs where you can see what happens if you have more than 50 items and how to deal with any other limitations you might encounter. And you can actually try this on the personalization demo, azurewebsites.net. It's a simple page that you would give it some information like what day of the week you like or something like that. And it will return with the highest ranked item from other users that played around with the demo. So thank you very much.
Before you close, Georgia, I have to say a few things about Georgia. Let me say a few things about Georgia. Georgia is one of the most valuable person in our community. She is hardworking. And she's always, when we ask Georgia, we have a new event, would you like to present? She always say yes. And she always is here, and I appreciate. It is a great honor to have members like you in my team.
Thank you, Konstantinos. I'm proud to be part of the team.
Thank you, Georgia. Big thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for having me today. So do we have any questions? Let's see the panel. I don't see anyone having any questions so far. So I'd like to thank everyone, the Microsoft Learn Ambassadors team, for having me today. And I hope everyone is staying safe and at home during this difficult time. Thank you very much and have a good evening with our next speakers.